Welcome to the news headlines this hour. Brazil became the world number 2 hotspot for coronavirus cases on Friday, second only to the United States after it confirmed about 330,890 people had been infected by the virus overtaking Russia. Brazil registered 1,001 daily coronavirus deaths on Friday, taking total deaths to 21,048 according to the health ministry. In Sao Paulo, the worst hit city, aerial videos showed of open plots at the Formosa cemetery as it rushed to keep up with the demand. Far-right President Jair Bolsonaro has been widely criticized for his handling of the outbreak and is at the center too for a deepening political crisis. The former army captain has seen his poll ratings drop, hurt by his opposition to social distancing measures, support of the unproven remedy chloroquine, and tussles with the experienced public health officials. The true number of cases and deaths is likely higher than the figures suggest, as Latin America's top economy has been slow to ramp up testing. The outbreak is accelerating. On Monday, Brazil overtook Britain to become the country with the third highest number of infections. It surpassed Russia on Friday but is unlikely to pass the United States soon. The world number 1 economy has more than 1.5 million cases. Since the outbreak began, Bolsonaro has lost 2 health ministers. After pressurizing them to promote the early use of anti-malarial drugs like chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine, several high-profile public health experts have also left. Many have been replaced by soldiers. Hong Kong was once again gripped by civil unrest as protesters took to the streets to oppose China's moves to take control of the autonomous city. Police on Sunday fired tear gas, rubber bullets and pepper sprays to disperse thousands of protesters who had gathered in the shopping district of Causeway Bay. They chanted, "Revolution of our time, liberate Hong Kong, fight for freedom, stand with Hong Kong, and Hong Kong independence, the only way out," Reuters reported. The protest was the first since Thursday when Beijing proposed national security laws in the new effort to increase its control over Hong Kong, moving to strike back after mass protest hampered its effort to roll back the city's autonomy in 2019. The Chinese government has proposed new national security legislation that critics say could erode the city's freedom and prevent further protests. The move came at China's landmark 2 sessions legislative event where the Communist Party sets out its program for the year ahead. Hong Kong is meant to introduce its own laws according to the agreement by which the former colony was returned to China in 1997, using the one country, two system formula. Hong Kong was consumed by huge protests last year against increased influence from mainland China.
City of fire. As local citizens fight back against China's growing influence and control.
So just stay back and film it. Stay back and film.
Back in August, we met this man.
You won't stop.
We won't stop. There's no turning back.
He's a student, but I can't say what he's studying. He's young, but I'm not allowed to tell you his age. He's a protester, but I won't give you his name. He fears for his safety, so I've dubbed him.
The movement saw millions take to Hong Kong street to protest against the power of People's Republic. The demonstration lasted for months. Hong Kong has increasingly become a pawn in deteriorating relationships between Washington and Beijing, and observers will be watching for any sign of resignation to defeat among the broader local community or indications that activists are gearing up for a fresh challenge, according to Reuters. US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo condemned the plans as a death knell for the city's freedom earlier this week. The UK, Australia, and Canada have also expressed their deep concern.
Own man, defiant against a column of tanks and an entire system. Hong Kong was free from those shows of force until 1997. That's when Britain handed control of the city to China. Beijing promised to let Hong Kong govern itself for 50 years, but it's been an uneasy compromise. This year, tensions erupted when officials proposed a law allowing Hong Kong citizens to be extradited to mainland China to stand trial. The law never passed, but it lit a fuse. Hong Kong residents were angry, accusing China of rolling back their freedoms, and hostility between police and protesters rapidly escalated. Citizen X is part of the vanguard of the protest movement. They call themselves the valiant or the brave, those who hold the front line and forcibly confront police.
The United States delivered its first batch of coronavirus humanitarian aid, including dozens of ventilators, to Russia this week. The delivery came just weeks after Russia sent a similar shipment to the US, and as both countries continue to battle the spread of COVID-19. The US Embassy in Moscow said on Thursday that 50 ventilators had arrived in the Russian capital as a part of $5.6 million humanitarian package. A total of 200 US manufactured ventilators were to be delivered, including a second batch expected to arrive next week. The donation came after Russia sent a cargo of medical supplies to New York in early April, and after a phone conversation between President Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. The United States has confirmed COVID-19 cases that any other nation at almost 1.6 million. Russia has the second largest outbreak with over 3,26,000. Now have a look how one Indian company could be world's door to COVID-19 vaccine. If the world is to gain access to a vaccine for COVID-19, there is a good chance it will pass through the doors of Serum Institute of India. Serum Institute, the world's largest manufacturer of vaccine by volume, is working on several candidates for the novel coronavirus, including potentially mass-producing the AstraZeneca Oxford University, one that has garnered global headlines. The efforts are partly being spearheaded by Umesh Shaligram, the head of development. His employer is a private company, but every day, shortly before midnight, he receives a WhatsApp message from the government asking for updates and about any new hurdles he faces.
This technology platform, which is a proven safe vaccine that now, as you know, has already entered into human trials. So we're hoping that, to get a jump start on the manufacturing, and that's why I made a statement that at personal risk and cost, we will make the vaccine, start producing it at the end of May, so that by September or October, if the trials come out to be positive and safe, then we'll have at least millions of doses to give our nation and our country and some other countries. And we don't have to then wait another 6 months after that, because, the vaccine production takes a few months. So that's why we've started this.
The message is usually from K. Vijay Raghavan, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's top scientific advisor. Shaligram promptly responds with a progress report and details any bottlenecks. We have begun to see approvals come through in days, even on a Sunday night, for trials and things like that, he added, noting some of these processes typically took 4 to 6 months. India quietly plays a key role in manufacturing 60 to 70% of all vaccines sold globally, with the Serum Institute playing a lead role, said the company's CEO. As the company's sprawling 150-acre campus in the western city of Pune, Shaligram and his team are working flat out. Dozens of buses ferry in hundreds of workers each day to the ground, which are buzzing with activity even as the city around remains largely under lockdown. Taliban leverages pandemic to burnish image as violence in Afghanistan surges. Decades of war, political chaos, desperate poverty, and now coronavirus. A perfect storm has gathered over one of the world's most benighted nations, Afghanistan, where ordinary citizens are facing a fresh form of misery. Taliban militants have announced they will keep fighting since they say there have been no confirmed cases of COVID-19 in areas under the group's control, a senior militant in the province of Ghazni has told. An exception to the ongoing tension will be a 3-day Eid ceasefire starting Sunday, the Taliban announced in a tweet on Saturday. The country's president agreed. The move came as the fighting between the two sides had intensified despite the coronavirus pandemic. Despite an uptick in violence, Taliban sources in Ghazni and 4 other provinces, Helmand, Patika, Khost and Nangar, have told NBC News that there is now what they characterize as an unwritten understanding in place with the Afghan government and the international groups like the WHO to work together during the pandemic, particularly when it comes to testing. Meanwhile, in China recorded 3 new confirmed cases on the mainland for May 23rd, following the first day with no new cases since the outbreak began. The National Health Commission said in a statement on Sunday. Of the new cases, 2 were imported, while 1 was a local transmission, the NHC said. Friday was the first time China had seen no daily rise in the number of cases since the pandemic began in the central city of Wuhan late last year. The number of new asymptomatic cases of the coronavirus increased to 36 from 28 a day earlier, the NHC said. The number of confirmed cases in the mainland stands at 82,974 and the death toll remained unchanged at 4,634. This is Jyoti reporting for Our Voice.